Facebook revealing this week that the data of as many of 87 million users was improperly accessed by political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica. Today, Facebook is announcing new steps to help make sure ads and pages on the site are authentic and transparent. They're now pre-screening advertisers to make sure the issue ads you see are actually authentic. I'll be back in a few moments for some analysis, but for now, let's go straight to my friend Dana Perino, live at Facebook's headquarters in Menlo Park, California, with a very special guest, Sheryl Sandberg. Good to see you, Dana.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks for filling in today. We appreciate it. And Sheryl, thanks for having us at headquarters. You've been breaking news. In fact, there's new breaking news about how Facebook is trying to sort of get ahead of some of these things. But the data privacy issue is certainly front and center. It seems like every day consumers, not just at Facebook, but consumers find out that their data is being sold here, left, right, and center. And at one point you had said something about it's an arms race. And I wonder if the consumers are in an arms race to protect their privacy, is it one that they could ever win?
Well, let's start with what's happening here, because what you're talking about is a broader industry issue, and it's a very important one. We know that at Facebook, we did not do enough to protect people's data. I'm really sorry for that. Mark is really sorry for that. And now we're taking very strong action to get ahead of the problems. We announced that starting Monday, we're going to start rolling out all around the world, right at the top of your newsfeed, a very easy link which shows you all the apps you've connected to and shared your data with, and a very easy way to delete them. We're being much more restrictive on what apps, what data apps can use, and particularly on other surfaces too, not just the old apps from before, but groups and pages and events. This is a long process. We are going through and systematically looking. We expect to find more, just like we did this week, and then we're going to proactively come out. We're going to fix the problems, tell people about them. We know that we need to make a different level of investment here, and one we should have done sooner, but we're doing in a very big way now. We had about 10,000 people working in safety and security at the beginning of the year. By the end of this year, we'll more than double to 20,000. We're investing in smart technology. And our goal is to make sure everyone can share safely on Facebook.
Well, data is certainly more valuable commodity now than anything in the world. And you've talked a lot about responsibility and transparency. Would Facebook be willing to talk about how much each person is worth when it comes to the ads? I mean, so that they have some sense of what they're worth.
Well, let's talk about ads, because it's a really important thing here. And you mentioned selling data. So let's be clear. We do not sell people's data. We don't do it for ads. We don't do it for any other reason. We also don't give your data to any advertisers. We have an advertising-based business model, and I think that's really important. Just like TV, just like radio, people can use this for free all around the world. And if you're trying to connect 2 billion people, using it for free is really important access to the content. We have privacy built into our ads model. So the way it works is that someone wants to show an ad on Facebook. We can show it to the people who might be interested in it. And then we do not pass individual information back to that advertiser. And it's really important that people understand that.
Okay, so but when you talked about the 20,000 people that would then be helping look at ads and things and trying to protect people, but if you have 2 billion users, is Facebook getting just too big? I mean, it's part of the success of the business. It's gotten so big. You have 2 billion users. Can you hire enough people to actually keep up with that?
At our size and scope, we have real responsibility. And we know that people have that question, and it's a question we're answering. We are ramping as quickly as possible, and you have to use technology too. What you said about an arms race at the beginning is true. Security is an arms race. That doesn't mean we don't have responsibility for it. We do. Right. But we all know that we're going to build something. Someone's going to try to get around it. We're going to build something. Someone's going to try to get around it. So we have to learn from the past and adjust. So the thing we're announcing today is about election ads. We learned from what happened in 2016. And what we're announcing today is that if you are running not just an election ad, so you're a candidate, but you're running an issue ad and we're going to publish a list of issues, we're going to verify who you are. You're going to have to tell us your location, your identity. If you won't tell us that, or we don't think it's correct, we're not going to let you run. We're going to label all of those ads as political ads, and then there's going to be an archive anyone can look at, which shows who paid for the ad, how much was spent, and the demographics.
Does that really come from what we know now about Russian influence in the election? And how far back does it go? Did Facebook know in the fall of 2015 that it had a problem with Russians trying to influence the election?
learned about this late. We did not know then. We had seen some early activity, we had published some stuff, but we didn't understand the gist of it. But now we do. And now we're taking action. You saw this week, we took down an additional 270 pages from the Russian-backed IRA. Now, a lot of people said, well, those are in Russian, targeted at Russians, in Russian, the language Russian targeted. And our answer was, these are Russian trolls. This is deceptive content. It has no place on our platform in the United States, in Russia, anywhere in the world. And we're not stopping there. We're looking for other things like it. And we're having some success based on what we learned in the 2016 election. Before the election in France, we found 30,000 fake accounts and took them down. Before the special Alabama Senate election, we found some Macedonian spammers that looked to be economically motivated, and we took those down in advance as well.
The 2016 election seems like it continues to be relitigated over and over again, and I appreciate that you're saying that. So going forward, this could happen. But is there any way, given the scope and scale of the election and all the things that happened, is there ever going to be an actual way to prove that any of that meddling had an impact on the election, changed minds, changed votes? To me, that seems almost impossible.
There are really important questions being asked about that election. We've shared all of the stuff that was published publicly. We've let people know if they liked it or if they saw it. And certainly those questions need to be answered. We're very focused, as you said, and we should be, on going forward in the next election. So one of the most important things we're focused on is fake accounts. Fake accounts were the source of the problem. And people think of fake accounts as often politically motivated, and they are, but a lot of times they're financially motivated.
Right.
People write outlandish headlines, get you to click, make money. So we've gone after those economic incentives. They can't participate in monetization on Facebook, just as one example.
So we've talked about three different big issues, fake news, privacy, data, how big Facebook is. Next week, Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO, who has been just a very naturally idealistic person. He really believes in the good that can come from connecting this global community. And next week, he's going to face members of Congress from both sides of the aisle that are quite cynical and realistic. How do you think that will go?
Mark's happy to go to Congress because Mark wants to answer every question people have about the service we offer. You know, we really believe in social experiences. And I think what happened here is we were very focused on creating that. Good things happen when you can share your information, right? You can find your friends' birthdays, you can share events with them. And we were really focused on that. And we weren't focused enough on being proactive enough. And Mark is happy to say, here's what we weren't doing and here's what we're doing now. Mark and I are also very focused on the good that happens on Facebook and making sure we protect it.
I don't think anybody questions that there's a lot of good that happens, but I think that especially if you were a commentator during the 2016 election, I mean, the negativity, the push, especially from the Russian bots and trolls and those Macedonian troll farms, the things that people have complained about, it was difficult to manage your own understanding of what was going on. And it seems to me that the idealism is certainly, I'm somebody who wakes up on the sunny side of the street. But I do think that the cynicism is real when it comes to how human nature has worked. And we are actually more tribal than before. In fact, if you look at the Gallup numbers of polarization, just even since Facebook started, I'm not blaming Facebook, but the more connected we are through technology, the more tribal we've become. And I think that that's one of the things that people are looking at, is that there's actually evil that can be done too.
And we did not pay enough attention to that. And now we are getting ahead of the problem. We're working really hard on false news. People want accurate information on Facebook, and we want them to have accurate information. So what we're doing is we're working with third-party fact checkers, everyone from the AP to the Weekly Standard. We have people in all 50 states now ahead of the election. If something is marked false, we warn people who are about to share it. We go back and warn the people who did share it. We dramatically decrease its distribution. And we mark related articles so we can give the other side of the story.
And speaking of that, so 2 years ago I got to come here, and there were concerns by a lot of conservatives that their content was being suppressed and that liberal content was being basically pushed forward. And then conservatives felt like things got better for a while. Then recently, when the algorithm changed, there's a lot of, not just conservative, but some liberal, sort of smaller news sites that say they built their businesses based on what Facebook had suggested would be the best way to handle things, and they had really good traffic. When the news feed changed and Facebook made those changes, they've seen dramatic drop-offs in their content. And they understand that there's a desire by Facebook to try to have better content. And would there be a willingness, and I think you'll be asked this next week, for Facebook to be more transparent about that algorithm so that they can feel that they are working on a level playing field?
We're definitely increasing transparency across the board. These newsfeed changes are important. I'd like to talk through what they were. We announced 2 big changes this year. The first, which was the biggest, it affected the most of the newsfeed, is about meaningful social interaction. So we care a lot that people have a good psychological experience on Facebook. And it turns out that research shows that when I'm interacting with a friend, so I like someone's photo or they do something, a comment on mine, even if it's small, that's a very good for me psychologically and the other person psychologically because we feel more connected. But when I'm passively viewing content, news, other things, and not doing anything, that's not as positive. So the biggest change we made in newsfeed was to dial up the friends and family interactions and dial down passive content, including news across the board, bipartisan, affects everyone. There's a second change we made, which was within news to show more trusted news sources. And that change really meant that the spammy, the clicky, the more outrageous stuff got dialed down. And the stuff that people trusted, both conservative and liberal, got dialed up.
So if Congress were to recommend an algorithm review board where people could feel like everybody from all political stripes is on a more level playing field, that might be something Facebook's willing to talk about?
We know there are big questions about how we run and how we should be regulated, and we're open to any conversations people want to have. These are important questions, and we want to give answers.
One of the things that they'll probably also ask you is making those decisions about the news feed. Did that put Facebook into a position of being more of a publisher and a media company rather than just the pipes that were providing the information?
Our goal is always to be a platform for all ideas. We are running a service that 2 billion people use, right? We work in a bipartisan way with people on both sides of the aisle. We do things, in a way that is not biased. And we work on issues in a bipartisan way with Republicans and Democrats. I was in Houston earlier this week, and one of the things we're working with, I know your viewers care about, are jobs, right? People are worried about jobs. So great majority of job creation in this country comes from small businesses. So I was in Houston this week with the mayor, meeting with small businesses. There are 10 million small businesses in the U.S. that use Facebook. 42% of them tell us that they're hiring because of the distribution they can get.
Which brings me to a last question for you. So the New York Times this past week on Monday ran an article saying that Silicon Valley is warming to President Trump. And they pointed to tax cuts and regulations and the focus on jobs as the reason that there might be some better feelings about President Trump and Silicon Valley and possible cooperation going forward. Do you see it that way too?
I can't speak for all of Silicon Valley. They're a big place with, lots of different interests.
All right. Sheryl Sandberg, thanks for joining us. You have a great company here, and you have a big testimony next week from Mark Zuckerberg. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it.
I was honored to be asked. Thank you. All right, Ed Henry, I will send it back to you for the rest of the show.
Dana, great job as always. A lot to unpack there.